into the deepest recesses of hell, and it's disgusting that the media hasn't covered it like they should.
It's an 8-armed octopus, and if you take just trafficking out, that arm will grow back. You have to take the head.
Wow.
Epstein Island isn't the only island out there where everybody's talking, and they all cried out Epstein Island. And I went, oh, okay, now I understand what we're up against.
That voice, it didn't shake easily. Not after everything he had already been through. Not after the backlash, the silence, the doors that quietly closed without explanation. But this time, something felt different. Because when Jim Caviezel started speaking again, really speaking, people noticed a shift. His tone wasn't just intense, it was cautious, measured, almost like someone who had seen too much and understood exactly what it could cost him to say even one word too many.
I'd like to work again, but I'd never been a guy who would sell his soul to get, money or fame. Was never my goal.
And then came the moment that changed everything. A name dropped into the conversation that nobody expected. A name so powerful, so protected, that even whispers around it tend to disappear before they ever reach the surface. And that's when Mel Gibson stepped in. Not publicly at first, not in a press conference or a headline interview, but behind the scenes, according to people close to the situation, there was a warning, a serious one.
It's an 8-armed octopus, and if you take just tracking out, that arm will grow back. You have to take the head, and we're talking grooming. We're talking about because procures more, and
Yes.
then it's a non-stop cycle. So this is a culture that has to be reawakened.
Because what Caviezel was starting to touch wasn't just controversial, it was dangerous. And the question now isn't just what he said, it's why someone like Mel Gibson felt the need to warn him at all. Because Mel Gibson knows this system better than most. Before any of this, before the interviews, before the rumors, before the tension you can almost feel in Caviezel's voice today, there was a very different story, a simpler one.
What is your message to mommy?
I did have affairs, but I saw and did nothing illicit. Bill Gates revealed to his charity, the Gates Foundation.
Most people were introduced to Jim Caviezel through The Passion of the Christ, a film that shocked Hollywood not just because of its subject, but because of its success. It wasn't supposed to win, it wasn't supposed to dominate, and yet it did. And standing behind that film was Mel Gibson.
It would seem we are in this together and will have to rise above it. He then signs off. Otherwise, keep in close touch and we'll play some more soon.
A man who had already built a reputation for going against the grain, for making choices the industry didn't always agree with, for refusing to play by the same quiet rules everyone else seemed to follow. That film bonded them in a way that goes deeper than just actor and director. It was trust, shared risk, shared consequences. Because after that movie, both men experienced something unusual. They didn't just gain fame, they gained resistance. Opportunities slowed, conversations shifted. The same industry that celebrates boldness suddenly became distant. But instead of stepping back, Caviezel leaned in. He started choosing roles that weren't about blockbuster fame, stories that had weight, stories that came with questions most people weren't asking out loud.
Look, because of what has happened, I don't think it is appropriate that we should remain in contact. And by mutual agreement during that walk in the park, we decided that we would part company, and I left, I think it was the next day. And to this day, I never had any contact with him from that day.
And over time, something changed in him. He wasn't just acting anymore. He was observing, listening, connecting dots. And according to his own words in multiple interviews over the years, he began hearing stories. Stories from people in law enforcement, from survivors, from individuals who had seen things they couldn't easily forget.
I don't remember anything about it. No recollection of it, but it could have happened.
That's what eventually led him toward projects like Sound of Freedom, a film that, once again, wasn't supposed to dominate, but somehow did. And just like before, success came with consequences, because this time, Caviezel didn't just act in the story. He started talking about what he believed was behind it. And that's where things began to get complicated. At first, it was general, discussions about global issues, systems, power structures, the kind of conversations that make people uncomfortable but don't point directly at anyone.
Secretary Howard Lutnick, Epstein's former neighbor, recounting his alleged experience with the deceased billionaire to the New York Post.
Way back when, they traded those videos in exchange for him getting that 18-month sentence.
Lutnick describing Epstein as gross.
I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me. Ooh. And he says, and the right kind of massage.
But then the tone shifted. The names started getting bigger, the implications heavier. And somewhere in that shift, Oprah Winfrey's name began circulating in online discussions and controversial conversations connected to these broader topics. Now, it's important to be clear, there has never been verified, proven evidence publicly confirming any wrongdoing by Oprah in relation to Epstein. But in the world Caviezel was stepping into, facts, speculation, and belief often collide in ways that blur the lines. And that's exactly what made this moment so risky. Because Oprah isn't just a celebrity, she's an institution, a global figure, a media powerhouse, someone whose influence stretches far beyond television or interviews. So when her name starts appearing in conversations tied to something as explosive as Epstein, even indirectly, it doesn't stay quiet for long. And that's when Mel Gibson reportedly stepped in, not to silence Caviezel, but to caution him, because Gibson has seen this before. He's seen what happens when narratives go too far outside the lines the industry is comfortable with. He's experienced firsthand how quickly support can disappear, how fast someone can go from respected to isolated. And according to those close to the situation, his message wasn't complicated. It was simple. Be careful. Not because Caviezel was wrong, not because he should stop speaking, but because the higher you go, the more powerful the names, the less forgiving the consequences become. But here's the twist nobody expected. Caviezel didn't step back. If anything, he became even more determined.
And they've done everything they could to stop it, as they did this with the Passion of the Christ.
Because from his perspective, this wasn't about fame anymore. It wasn't about career moves or Hollywood relationships. It was about truth, or at least what he believed to be true. And that belief came with a cost. Interviews became more intense, reactions more divided. Supporters saw him as someone brave enough to speak. Critics saw him as someone stepping into dangerous territory without clear evidence. And in the middle of all that noise, the pressure kept building. Because once a narrative like this starts moving, it doesn't stay contained. Clips get shared, statements get taken out of context, headlines get created from fragments of conversations, and suddenly it's no longer about what was actually said, it's about how it's being interpreted. That's when things started affecting more than just Caviezel's public image. People close to him reportedly became concerned, not just about his reputation, but about his safety, his peace of mind, the emotional toll of carrying something this heavy, this controversial, this misunderstood.
It's an 8-armed octopus. And if you take just tracking out, that arm will grow back. You have to take the head. And we're talking grooming. We're talking about, because procures more, and
Yes.
then it's a non-stop cycle. So this is a culture that has to be reawakened.
Because whether someone agrees with him or not, there's no denying one thing. He believes what he's saying. And believing something that puts you at odds with powerful systems can be isolating in ways most people will never understand. Meanwhile, Mel Gibson remained largely quiet publicly, but that silence says more than people realize, because Gibson isn't someone who reacts to every headline. He doesn't step into every controversy, so the fact that he chose to warn Caviezel, even privately, speaks volumes. It suggests awareness, experience, and maybe even concern about where all of this could lead. Because this isn't just about one statement or one name. It's about the pattern. The moment someone steps outside the accepted narrative, challenges powerful figures, or even appears to connect dots that others avoid, everything changes. Relationships shift, support fades, and suddenly the conversation isn't about the issue anymore. It's about the person speaking. And that's exactly where Caviezel found himself, not at the center of a discussion, but at the center of a storm. And storms like this don't end quickly. They linger, they evolve, they pull in more voices, more opinions, more speculation. And through it all, one question keeps echoing louder than anything else. Was this a warning meant to protect him, or a sign of just how serious things had become? Because Mel Gibson didn't just speak from opinion, he spoke from experience. And experience like his doesn't come without scars. So when someone like that tells you to be careful, you listen. Or at least you should. But Caviezel, he made his choice. And now the world is watching to see what happens next. Because stories like this don't just disappear. They grow, they shift, they reveal more with time.
When the public wakes up to this whole thing and sees films like this, people won't be able to walk down the street ever again.
And sometimes they leave behind questions that don't have easy answers. So here's the real question. Not what was said, not who was mentioned, but what it means when someone is willing to risk everything just to say it out loud. If you've made it this far, you already know. This story isn't simple, and it's definitely not over. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think warnings like this come from fear or from truth? And if you were in his position, would you stay silent or keep speaking? And if you want more deep stories like this, real, raw, and unfiltered, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because the next story might be even bigger.